Good morning, children. So, we are starting with a new chapter from Company Accounts Issue of Shares. This is the part 1 of the chapter. In this video, we will be doing the basic parts. So, first of all, let us start with the definition of a company, since we have to study about the your various books of accounts of a company. So, as you can see, the definition of a company is given by Professor Henny. And in his words, a company is an artificial person created by law having separate entity with a perpetual succession and a common seal. So basically, a company is an institution which works like a person, like a human being, but it's actually not a human being, and it is created by law. Legally, it is created by passing an act or getting itself registered. It has a separate entity. The members of the company and company, they both are having two different identities. It enjoys a perpetual succession, means members may come, members may go, but the company remains until and unless it is completely wound up. And a common seal, that means there has to be a common stamp on which the name of the company or address, anything in addition besides the name of the company, will be engraved, which will be like a signature of the company on every important documents. So now the characteristics of a company, these are just a very basic point you should be knowing. That's why we will not be doing it much in detail, but just quick revision. All these you must have studied in class 11th. Characteristics of a company or features of a company involve separate legal entity, as I already explained you, that according to this feature, a company and its members carry two different identities. What belongs to the members does not belong to the company, and what belongs to the company does not belong to the members. Second characteristic is perpetual existence. That means the company will continue forever. It is its identity, its life is independent of members. Members may come, members may go, but the company will remain unless and until it is completely wound up. The third very important point or feature is limited liability. A company's the members of a company carry a limited liability. That means if in case of loss, even if the funds of the company fall insufficient, the personal property of the members cannot be attached. Only they will be liable to pay only that much amount which they have invested by way of shares, etc. Then fourthly, common seal. Common seal means it is a characteristic of a company whereby, again, as I explained you while explaining you the definition, that it is like a signature of the company. In this case, the company will be having a stamp on which the name of the company, besides any other additional information like the address or the registration number, etc., will be engraved, and it will be put up on all the official and important documents of a company. Without this common seal, no document will be binding on the company. Then the next one is transferability of the shares. The shares of a company can be transferred from one member to another with few restrictions. And lastly, separation of management from ownership. As we all know, the ownership of the company is in the hands of the members or the shareholders, whereas the management of the company is in the hands of the board of directors. Now the kinds of a company, again very quickly we'll just do. Unlimited company, the liability where it is unlimited. Then company limited by guarantee, where the liability is limited by the additional amount of guarantee given. Then company limited by shares, where the liability is limited only and only up to the amount of shares in which the members have invested. Then the private company bearing the ownership, public company, and one person company. One person company is a new form of company whereby it is owned, managed, and controlled by one single individual, like sole proprietor, but it bears the features or the characteristics of a joint stock company. For example, a common seal, it has a artificial, it is working like an artificial person, etc. Now, let us quickly discuss the difference between the private company and the public company. So, we'll be discussing just two differences. In case of private company, minimum number of members is 2, and the maximum exclusive of past and present employees. It's 200. And in case of public company, minimum number of members is 7 and there is no limit to the maximum number. There can be any number of members in case of public company. Then another difference is on the basis of transfer of shares. In case of private company, there is restriction on the transfer of its shares. It cannot be transferred freely in case of private company. But in case of public company, there is no restriction on the transfer of its shares. So these are the differences between private company and public company. Now let us discuss the very important word this chapter is all about, that is shares. So let us discuss the meaning of share. Shares, basically it is, we can say, total capital of the company is divided into units of small denominations and each such unit is called a share. For example, if we set up a company and the total capital of the company is to be 5 lakh and we want to divide it into smaller denominations of 500 rupees each, so 500 each of number of shares, that will be considered as, individual units will be considered as shares. Then the types of shares, there are mainly two types of shares. One is the preference shares and second is the equity shares. Preference shares get some preference, some more benefits over equity shares. Preference shares can further be classified as cumulative preference shares. Now one thing you need to know is that shares or shareholders, they get dividend in return of their investment by way of shares. So in case of cumulative preference shares, the dividend keeps on accumulating if there is not sufficient profit, and once the profit are sufficient, the dividend, accumulated dividend is paid on preference shares. Non-cumulative preference shares, the dividend in year of loss or insufficient profit, it lapses, it doesn't accumulate. Participating preference shares, they get some participating rights in the business. Non-participating preference shares, these holders do not get any participating rights. Redeemable preference shares, these preference shares are redeemable, are to be repaid after a certain period of time. Irredeemable preference shares are not redeemable within the lifetime of the company. It is redeemable after or at the time of winding up. Convertible preference shares are those preference shares which can be converted into equity shares, whereas non-convertible preference shares are those shares which cannot be converted into equity shares. Then the second main type is equity shares. So equity shares are basically those kind of shares where the dividend is paid after paying the preference shareholders. Then equity shares enjoy the voting rights, etc. Now let us discuss the difference between preference shares and equity shares. Here also we'll just discuss 2 points. In case of preference shares, the dividend is paid at a fixed rate. Dividend is fixed. But in case of equity shares, dividend to be paid is not fixed, rather it is dependent on the profit. Higher the profit, more will be the dividend on equity shares. Lower the profits, lower will be the dividend on the equity shares. The rate of dividend on equity shares is not fixed. It may vary from year to year depending upon the availability of profits. Then arrears of dividend. In case of preference shares, if dividend is not paid on these shares in any year, the arrears of dividend may accumulate, and this basically happens in case of cumulative preference shares. But in case of equity shares, dividend cannot accumulate. If the profits are insufficient, that in that particular year the dividend lapses. Then the next very important terms is share capital. Now you'll come across this word again and again while discussing the chapter issue of shares. Now share capital means the capital raised by a company by the issue of shares. So any amount which the company raises by way of issuing shares, that is known as share capital. Many individuals and institutions contribute various sums to the company's capital, yet there is no separate capital account for each of these individuals, because whenever a company offers its shares for the public to subscribe or anybody, there are n number of people who are subscribing the shares, so it is next to impossible to prepare separate capital account for each and every shareholder. So it is feasible to prepare one common account, and that is share capital account. So there is one consolidated capital account called the share capital account. Then the kinds of share capital. So the very first kind of share capital is authorized capital, which is also known as registered capital or nominal capital. So basically this is the authorized or registered or nominal capital is the capital with which it is the amount with which the company is registered under the Companies Act. As you can see, authorized capital refers to that amount which is stated in the Memorandum of Association. This is the maximum capital for which a company is authorized to issue shares during its lifetime. Then the next type of share capital is the issued capital. So that part of authorized capital which is issued to the public for subscription, that is known as issued capital. And that part which is not issued to the public, that will be considered as unissued capital. So issued capital is that part of authorized capital which is offered to the public for subscription. The remaining part of the authorized capital is known as the unissued capital, which can be issued later on. Then subscribed capital. Once the shares have been issued to the public for subscription, it is not necessary that the entire number of shares will be subscribed or will be purchased by the public or the shareholders. So that part of issued capital which is subscribed by the public or purchased by the public, that part is known as the subscribed capital, and that part which is not subscribed by the public is known as unsubscribed capital. So as you can see, subscribed capital is that part of issued capital which has been subscribed for by the public. If any so as you can see, now if say 13,000 shares of rupees 100 each are offered to the public and the public applies for 12,000 shares, so the subscribed capital will be 12 lakh. If we or the company has issued 13,000 shares of 100 rupees, that means 13 lakh, and public have subscribed or purchased only 12,000 shares of 100 each, that means 12 lakh. So in that case 12 lakh out of 13 lakh will be the subscribed capital and remaining 1 lakh will be the unsubscribed capital. Now you can further see that subscribed capital is shown in the balance sheet under two heads, under two headings, under two categories. The first category is subscribed and fully paid up. That means when entire nominal or face value or nominal value means the value which is printed, which is written on the shares of a share is called by the company and also paid up by the shareholder, it is said to be subscribed and fully paid up capital. Actually what happens, whenever a shareholder or anybody subscribes the capital, purchases the shares of a company, the company generally doesn't ask the amount at one go. Generally the company asks the amount in installments. Maybe this 100 rupees, maybe in the first installment the company might ask for 20 rupees per share, then 30 rupees per share, and then lastly 50 rupees per share. So it may be called up in installment. So whenever the company calls up the money and the shareholders pay the entire money, so that part of subscribed capital which is called up and completely paid, that is a separate category. For example, there are 12,000 shareholders, out of which 11,000 shareholders have completely paid the amount which was called up by the company. So they will be categorized as subscribed and fully paid up. And remaining 1,000 who have not paid the entire amount, that will be subscribed but not fully paid up. So this is the second category, as you can see, subscribed but not fully paid up. So these two categories have to be shown separately while preparing the balance sheet of the company. Shares are said to be subscribed but not fully paid up under the following two situations. Number one, when the company has called up the full nominal value of the share but the shareholder has not paid some part of the nominal value of the share. That means the company has called the entire value or the face value of the shares, but the shareholder has not paid some part of it. If the company has called 100 rupees, the entire amount, the shareholder has paid only 80 rupees. So 20 rupees is not fully paid up. Then another point can be when the company has not called up the full nominal value of the share. If the company has called up only 80 rupees till now and shareholders have paid 80 rupees but 20 is still to be called up, so that will also be categorized as subscribed but not fully paid up. Then fourth kind of share capital is the called up capital. So this is that part of subscribed capital which the company calls up from the shareholder to pay it. Called up capital means such part of the subscribed capital which has been called by the directors from shareholders for payment. For example, if the directors call at the rate of rupees 60 per share on 12,000 shares of rupees 100 each, so the value of face value of the share 12,000 share is 100, but the company is calling, for the time being company is calling 60 rupees per share. So 60 into 12,000, 7,20,000 will be the called up capital, and remaining amount of 40 rupees per share will be the uncalled capital. This can be called up whenever the company feel likes. The next kind of share capital is the paid up capital. So paid up capital is that part of called up capital which was called up by the company and has been paid. The term paid up refers to the amount received against the calls made on the share. Usually the called up capital and the paid up capital are the same, except that some shareholders may not have paid the amount of calls. Any unpaid amount is called calls in arrear. So that amount of called up value which was not paid by the shareholder will be termed as calls in arrear, and the remaining which has been paid will be called as paid up capital. For example, if a shareholder has paid rupees 5 against the called up amount of rupees 8, 8 was called but he has paid only 5 rupees, then 5 rupees is paid up amount, and paid up capital will be called up capital less the amount of calls in arrear. That means paid up capital will be called up capital, how much the company has called, minus the amount of calls in arrear which was not paid. For example, 8 rupees was called up, 5 was paid up, and 3 was calls in arrear. So 8 minus calls in arrear 3. So 5 rupees will be the paid up value. Then the last kind of share capital is the reserve capital. As per section 65 of the Companies Act 2013, only an unlimited company having a share capital while converting into a limited company may have reserve capital. In such a case, the company by a resolution may increase the nominal amount if its share capital by increasing the nominal amount of each of its shares, and determine that no part of the increased capital shall be called up except in the event of winding up of the company, or provide that a specified portion of its uncalled share capital shall not be called except in the event of winding up of the company. So basically reserve capital is the rule which applies according to the latest modification. According to the latest rule, it applies to the unlimited company which is converting into a limited company basically, and it is something related to it. It is a capital which can exceed the authorized capital, but this reserve capital can be the part of uncalled capital or excess capital kept, and it will be called up only and only at the time of winding up and not any time else. In such a case, the increased capital in case A, the excess of authorized capital or nominal capital, or a specified portion of uncalled capital in case B, or that is the second point, becomes reserve capital. It is available only for the creditors on the winding up of the company. Now the difference between reserve capital and capital reserve. This is one of the very important questions generally asked in ISC Council exams. So the first basis of difference is meaning and creation. Reserve capital refers to that portion of increased nominal capital or uncalled share capital which shall not be called up except in the event of winding up. So it is that reserve capital is that amount of uncalled share capital or the excess over authorized capital which will be called up only and only at the time of winding up and not any time else. Whereas capital reserve is that reserve which is created out of capital profits, such as profit on sale of fixed assets, profit on revaluation of fixed assets, premium on issue of shares and debentures, profit on redemption of debentures, etc. These profits are not earned in the normal course of business. So basically, in simple words, we can say that capital reserve are the reserves which are created out of capital profits. Then the necessity. Reserve capital is not necessary to create, whereas capital reserve is necessary to create in case of capital profits. Now, very important point. Presentation of share capital in company's balance sheet. How will you show the bifurcation or share capital in case of company's balance sheet. Now, one thing you should remember, we have already discussed while discussing the chapter common size and comparative statements, that a joint stock company prepares a vertical form of balance sheet as per schedule 3rd of Companies Act 2013, and for this please do revise the balance sheet format that we have discussed earlier for companies. Now, as per schedule 3rd of Companies Act 2013, share capital is to be disclosed in a company's balance sheet in the following manner: extract of balance sheet of the name of the company. Again, this is the part of the format. If you do not write this, your marks will be deducted. So, extract of balance sheet of, or you can even write balance sheet of the name of the company as at the date of preparation or the end of the accounting year. Now, the first column will be the particulars, second column will be the note number, third column will be the current year amount, and the fourth column will be the previous year amount. All this format we have already discussed, but here we will just discuss the how to show the share capital. So we all know, first of all, because since it is the vertical format, so first of all we show the equity and liabilities. So the first heading will be equity and liabilities, under which the very first heading will be shareholder funds, and in shareholder funds we basically record share capital, reserves and surplus, money received against share warrants, whatever the amount is. Now, as you can see, and we have already discussed while discussing common size and comparative statements, that in the balance sheet of the company we only show the main amount of the headings and subheadings. We do not show the bifurcation. Whatever the bifurcations are there, that are shown separately in notes to accounts, and this is the reason you can see an asterisk against share capital word, and that asterisk basically it signifies that as per schedule 3rd or schedule 3, disclosure requirements pertaining to share capital are to be provided in notes to accounts. So main amount of the net amount of share capital we will show in the balance sheet, and the bifurcation, the subparts we will show in notes to accounts separately. Now let us discuss how the share capital and its subparts will be shown in notes to accounts. So as you can see, note number 1 is share capital. Very first point, you will show authorized capital. Now, the first part you will show authorized capital always, and you will here show, as you can see, dot dot dot, this is basically number of equity shares of rupees, the value each. For example, the company is having authorized capital of 5,000 shares of 100 each. So you will write 5,000 equity shares of 100 each. That makes basically 5 lakh rupees. So this 5 lakh net amount you will show in the amount column. And similarly, if there are any preference shares, you will do the same for that also. And one very important point you need to remember for authorized capital, children, and even for issued capital as well. Even if the amount, even if the information is not given in the question, what is the number of authorized capital, shares, etc., then too, in notes to account, while showing the share capital and its bifurcation, you will be mentioning the authorized and issued capital with amount if it is given in the question, without amount as it is just like dot dot dot, as it is shown here, even if the amount is not mentioned. This is the part of the format, and marks are allocated on this. So if you do not write this, your marks will be deducted. Then after showing the authorized capital in the amount column, you will draw the line. Why we are drawing the line? Because authorized capital will be just shown, it will not be added while calculating the share capital. Amount will not be added, therefore we are just closing it by drawing the line. Same we will do with the issued capital. That part of authorized capital which will be issued to the public, that will be written here. For example, if out of 5,000 equity shares of authorized capital, 2,000 equity shares of 100 each are issued to the public, so we will write under issued capital 2,000 equity shares of 100 each, that makes 2 lakh. So 2 lakh will be shown in the amount column. The first amount column is for the current year, second amount column is for the previous year. This also we have already discussed in common size and comparative statement chapter, that according to the latest rule as of the Companies Act 2013, while preparing the company's balance sheet and notes to accounts, we will show the current year balance first and previous year balance later on. Then issued capital also, you just have to show whether the amount is given or not, you have to mention it. And after writing the amount, or even if the amount is not there, you will just draw the line which will signify that this will not be added while totaling the share capital. After showing issued capital of equity shares and preference shares separately, if any, now you will show the subscribed capital. So that part of issued capital which the public have subscribed, that you will show. And we have already discussed that subscribed capital, whenever it is shown in the balance sheet, it will be shown under two categories. Firstly, subscribed and fully paid up capital, that means whatever was called, it was paid by the shareholders. And secondly, subscribed but not fully paid up capital. So under subscribed and fully paid capital, number of equity shares means, let's say 2000 equity shares were issued, out of which let's say 500 equity shares were subscribed and fully paid. So 500 equity shares of 100 each, that makes 50, basically 50,000. That will you will be showing on the amount column. The same you will do with the preference shares. Then of the, as you can see in the brackets, of the above shares, shares are allotted as fully paid up pursuant to a contract without payments being received in cash. Then subscribed, next category is subscribed but not fully paid capital. So number of shares, the value, and per share called up. That means how much has been called up. For example, out of 500 shares, and apart from that 500 which was fully paid, 200 shares were such on which 100 rupees was called up but only 80 was paid. So you will, under the heading subscribed but not fully paid capital, you will show 100 shares of 100 each, let's say that makes 10,000 per called up. You will show 10,000 minus or less calls in arrear, that means which was not paid. So if 80 was paid, that means 20 was not paid. So 20 on 100 shares, that means 2,000 was not paid. So that will be deducted as calls in arrears by directors and officers, means if they have not paid, by others, maybe the public has not paid. So 10,000 minus 2,000 calls in arrear. Then if there is any forfeited shares, maybe somebody has forfeited shares, means the cancelled shares. So if it might happen that any shareholder has purchased the shares and he is unable to pay the call money in spite of getting reminders. So what the company does, after giving the notice period and everything, the company simply forfeits his share or cancels his share. So that share will be returned back to the company. So that will be again added. So we will add forfeited shares and we will deduct calls in arrears. So net amount we will show in the outer column, and this final amount of subscribed capital, subscribed and fully paid, subscribed not fully paid, less calls in arrear, add forfeited share, etc., the net amount of share capital will be shown in the balance sheet. So this was how we have to show the share capital in balance sheet and notes to accounts. Now quickly discuss the difference between authorized capital and the issued capital. Authorized capital, or nominal or registered capital, it is the maximum amount for which a company is authorized to issue shares. The company cannot issue shares more than its authorized capital. Then issued capital is basically that part of authorized capital which is offered to the public for subscription, as we have already discussed. Then disclosure. Authorized capital or nominal capital or registered capital is stated in the memorandum of association of the company, because memorandum of association is the charter document. Issued capital is stated in the articles of association of the company. And limit, in case of authorized nominal or registered capital, it is equal to or more than the issued capital. It will be either equal to issued capital or it will be more than that. It cannot be less than that. Issued capital is equal to or less than the authorized capital. So authorized capital will either be equal or more than the issued capital, but issued capital will either be equal or less than the authorized capital. Now let us discuss issue of shares in detail. Shares may be issued in any of the two following ways. Number one, for cash. That means shares are issued and in return public purchases the shares and pays the cash. And second is for consideration other than cash. That means we are issuing the shares and in return we are not getting cash, we are issuing the shares for some other reason. For example, if the company, while setting up, the company has hired some institutions or some promoters who will be helping the company to establish. So in return of, instead of paying the promoters their fees, their expenses, etc., instead of paying them that, the company might issue shares to them. So that will be considered as issue of shares for consideration other than cash. So let us start with the first main category, that is public subscription of shares. That means issue of shares for cash. So following steps are to be taken by a public company, because public company can only issue shares to the public, for the issue of shares to public. Number one is, first of all, what the public company will do, the public company will issue the prospectus. Number two, after issuing the prospectus, after it is kind of an advertisement, after issuing prospectus, the public company will receive the applications. Means it will receive the application from the public who are ready to purchase the shares. Then after receiving the applications, then the company will allot the shares to the shareholders. It is not necessary that all those who are applying for the shares, they will be allotted. And then lastly, after getting the allotment, the company will be calling up the installment money of the shares. So number one is to issue prospectus. As I said, prospectus is an invitation to the public to purchase its shares. It describes the profitability and soundness of the business of the company to attract the investing public. Basically, it contains all the profits, etc., all the knowledge. It is kind of a professional promotional effort by the company. It contains the following information such as name and address of the registered office of the company, names and addresses of the directors, objects of the company, risk involved in the issue, consent from SEBI, authorized and issued capital of the company, and the number of shares now offered for subscription, terms of present issue, dates of opening and closing of the issue, etc. So all these informations are mentioned in prospectus so as to make the things transparent and appeal the public to subscribe more and more shares. After the issue of prospectus, the company receives the applications. After reading the prospectus, the public applies for shares in the company on a prescribed form. Each application must accompany the application money, which is mentioned in the prospectus, but it should not be less than 20% of the issue price of each share. So whenever a public subscribes or applies for a share in the company, it is not that it will just send an application. No, along with the application, it has to give the application money also. And application money is basically a part of the face value of the share, or the issue price, basically issue price of the share at which the company issues the share to the public. And that issue price, that application money of the issue price, it cannot be less than 20% of the issue price. For example, if a share is issued at rupees 100, so 25% of rupees 100 will be 25 rupees. So the application money on the such share cannot be less than 25. The amount of share application money must be deposited by the public in the scheduled bank. The name of the company's scheduled bank is also mentioned in the prospectus. Then after receiving the application, the company makes allotment of shares. After the last date is fixed for receipt of application money expires, the bank sends all applications to the company. The directors of the company cannot proceed to allot shares unless minimum subscription mentioned in the prospectus has been received by the company. So after the date is over, after the final date of subscription is over, the scheduled bank of the company will hand over all the applications to the company, and then thereafter the company will start making the allotment of the shares only and only if the minimum subscription criteria has been fulfilled. Now, what is minimum subscription? According to section 39 subsection 1 of Companies Act 2013, it provides that a company cannot allot any securities of the company, any shares, any debentures, etc., to public unless the amount stated in the prospectus as the minimum amount has been subscribed and the sum payable on application for the amount so stated have been received by the company by check or other instrument which has been paid. That means there has to be a minimum amount set in the prospectus which will be mentioned, and if and only if the subscriptions or applications have been received up till the minimum amount at least, then only allotment can be made, otherwise no. And minimum subscription means the amount which is in the opinion of the directors is the minimum to be raised by the issue of shares so as to provide for the following requirements, namely for the payment of purchase price of any property purchased or agreed to be purchased, for the payment of preliminary expenses including underwriting commission and brokerage on issue of shares, for the repayment of any monies borrowed by the company for the above purposes, for borrowing for working capital, for any other expenditure required for the usual conduct of business operations. So basically these are the areas for which a company or board of directors, the management of the company expects a certain amount which should be raised, minimum amount which should be raised by issue of shares. So therefore the company basically requires that this much minimum amount should be raised, and if such minimum, at least minimum amount has not been raised by issue of shares, then in that case the allotment cannot be proceeded further. Now, how much should be the minimum subscription? Let us discuss. The Companies Act 2013 has not prescribed the minimum subscription. However, according to the SEBI guidelines, Securities Exchange Board of India guidelines, minimum subscription has been fixed at 90% of the issued amount. Companies Act has not put up any limit, any minimum amount, but SEBI guidelines has said that at least 90% of the issued amount should be the minimum subscription. For example, if the company is issuing 10,000 shares of 100 each to the public, so 10,000 shares of 100 each makes basically the capital of 10 lakh. So out of this issue of 10 lakh, at least 90% should be the basically the minimum subscription. That means at least 9 lakh applications should have been received. As per section 39 subsection 3, company has to get minimum subscription within 30 days from the date of issue of prospectus. So there is a limit of receiving minimum subscription also, and the limit is 30 days right from the date of issue of prospectus or kind of application invitation. If the company fails to receive the minimum subscription within the said period, the company cannot proceed with the allotment of shares, and the entire application money must be returned within the next 15 days. So if the minimum subscription has not been received, the 90% of issue price has not been received within 30 days of issue of prospectus, then in such a case the company cannot proceed further with allotment of shares, and whatever application money the company has received till date will have to be returned maximum in next 15 days. If there is a delay in refund of such amount by more than 15 days, the company shall be liable to repay it with interest at the rate of 15% per annum for the delayed period. Either it has to pay it within 15 days, and if it delays, then it has to pay 15% per annum for the delayed period interest extra. Each allottee will be issued. Now the point arises when the shares have been allotted. Each allottee will be issued share certificates for eligible number of shares. It is not necessary that if I am applying for 5,000 shares, I will be getting 5,000. It could be that I am getting only 4,000 shares. I will be allotted only 4,000 shares. So each allottee will be issued share certificates for eligible number of shares. In case of oversubscription of shares, that means company has issued 10,000 shares, but application people have applied for 15,000 shares. So remaining 5,000 shares is what? It is oversubscription of shares. The allotment shall be on a proportionate basis according to the number of shares applied for. So company has issued 10,000 shares, public have subscribed for 15,000 shares. Company cannot allot more than the issued. Company can allot only and only 10,000. So it can allot the 10,000 shares to the applicants of 15,000 shares proportionately. Then, for example, if a company issues a prospectus inviting applications for 1 lakh shares, and if applications are received for 4 lakh shares, the issue has been oversubscribed by 4 times. In such a case, an applicant in the category of 500 shares is entitled to the proportionate allotment of 500 upon 4, 125. This is just an example. Proportionately, he is applying for 500, we will be giving him 125, 1/4. As a result of oversubscription, Some applications may be rejected in full. That means we will some applications might be such which we have to reject as a whole in the entire amount. We cannot allot a single share to them. Others may be partially accepted, and still others may be accepted in full. Some may be accepted in full, some may be accepted partially, and some may be rejected in full. Those who are allotted shares are sent letters of allotment indicating the number of shares allotted and the amount now due on allotment. Those who are not allotted shares are sent letters of regret along with a check for the refund of application money. Quite easy point. Now the last step is to make calls. After the allotment is done, now the remaining call money will be called up by the company. The amounts paid on application and allotment are not calls but subsequent installments. As and when demanded are calls. That means if 100 rupees is the face value, 25 is asked at the time of application, 25 is asked at the time of allotment. 50 has been called up, remaining 50 can be called as calls, first call, second call, third call, and so on. A company may demand the whole amount of a share on application in one installment. If the whole of the amount of share is not paid on application and allotment, the unpaid amount may be called by the directors in one or more installments. Each installment is named as first call, second call, third call, fourth call, etc. Calls must be made strictly in accordance with the provisions of the Articles of Association. In the absence of Articles of Association, the provisions of Table F of Schedule 1 of the Companies Act 2013 shall apply. These provisions are: the amount to be called up either on application or on allotment or any one call shall not exceed 25% of the total quantum of the issue. That means maximum amount which can be called up according to table F of schedule 1. This will be followed only if no articles of association, no provision is mentioned in the basically companies rules. So in that case, it will be applying the provisions of table F of schedule 1 of the Companies Act 2013, which says that any amount to be called up either at the time of application or allotment or calls should not exceed 25% of the issue price. Then secondly, all amount of shares should be fully called up within a period of 12 months from the date of allotment. Should not be delayed. It should be called up within 12 months from the date of allotment. Thirdly, there must be an interval of at least 1 month between making two calls. Fourthly, at least 14 days notice must be given to the shareholders to pay the amount of call. And lastly, calls must be made on a uniform basis on all the shares within the same class of shares. No partiality should be done. Then a call letter must specify the amount of the call, mode of remitting money, address to which the call money is required to be sent, and the last day for sending the money. So these are the provisions of Articles of Association regarding the calls amount. Now the preliminary expenses. Preliminary expenses, basically expenses incurred on the formation of a company or setting up a company, are termed as preliminary expenses. These include the following. Number 1, expenses incurred on the preparation and printing of various documents needed for the registration of a company, stamp duty and registration fees on these documents, duty payable on authorized capital, cost of preliminary books in case the company has been formed to purchase a running business, the fees charged by accountant or valuer valuing the assets and liabilities of that business. So these are various expenses which are incurred on setting up or forming a company. And all these expenses which are incurred on setting up of a company or establishing a company are termed as preliminary expenses. As per AS 26, that is Accounting Standard 26, preliminary expenses are to be written off in the year in which they are incurred. They should be written off first from securities premium reserve account and in its absence from general reserve or from surplus, that is balance in statement of profit and loss under the head reserve and surplus. So every year the rule says that preliminary expenses needs to be written off in the year when it was incurred, and it should be written off in the following hierarchy. First of all, if any securities premium reserve is there, so it will be written off, it will be set off from securities premium reserve. If it is still to be there, or if securities premium reserve is not there, second priority will be given to general reserve. And even if general reserve is not there or is insufficient, the remaining one will be settled by surplus, that is from balance of statement of profit and loss. So these are the basic concepts which you should be knowing related to issue of shares. Now I hope that things are clear to you, children. Quite an important chapter, quite a lengthy chapter. Now this is the assignment based on this part. You have to answer the following questions in your register. You have to list any two characteristics of a company. You can name any two: separate legal entity, common seal, perpetual succession, etc. Then list the various kinds of a company. We have discussed unlimited company, company limited by guarantee, company limited by shares, private company, public company, one person company. Then number 3, give two differences between a private company and a public company. You can write private company minimum 2 members, maximum 200, public company minimum 7, maximum no limit. Private company, there is restriction on it, on the number on the transfer of shares. Public company, there is no restriction on transfer of shares. Then question number 4, you have to give the meaning of shares. You can write total capital of the company is divided into units of small denomination, and each such unit is called a share. Question number 5, you have to list down the types and subtypes of shares. So types of shares are preference shares and equity shares. Subtypes is preference shares can be classified as cumulative preference shares, non-cumulative preference shares, participating preference shares, non-participating preference shares, redeemable preference shares, irredeemable preference shares, convertible preference shares, and non-convertible preference shares. Then the next question, question number 6, give two differences between preference shares and equity shares. So first difference can be preference shares, the dividend are paid at a fixed rate. In case of equity shares, the rate of dividend is not fixed. In case of preference shares, if dividend is not paid on these shares, the arrears of dividend may accumulate. But in case of equity shares, the dividend cannot be accumulated. The next question number 7, what do you mean by share capital? You can write the answer as share capital means the capital raised by a company by the issue of shares. Then question number 8, explain the various types of capital. So you will be explaining authorized or registered or nominal capital, the capital with which the company is registered; issued capital, that part of authorized capital which is offered to the public for subscription; then subscribed capital, that part of issued capital which has been subscribed for by the public; called up capital, the capital, that part of subscribed capital which has been called up by the directors from shareholders for payment; then paid up capital, that part of called up capital which is paid up by the shareholders; reserve capital, basically that amount of uncalled capital which will be called up at the winding up of the company. Then the next question, give any two differences between reserve capital and capital reserve. You can write the difference as reserve capital can be called up, it is basically that amount of excess of over nominal capital or uncalled capital which will be called up at the time of winding up, and capital reserve is the reserve created out of capital profits. Another difference you can write, reserve capital is not necessary to create, but capital reserve is necessary to create in case of capital profits. The next question, you have to give the presentation of share capital in the company's balance sheet along with the notes to account. So for this you will prepare this balance sheet and the presentation of share capital here along with the notes to accounts which I have explained here. Next question, give any two differences between authorized capital and issued capital. So you can write authorized capital is stated in memorandum of association of the company, issued capital is stated in articles of association of the company. Then you can write another difference, that authorized capital is equal to or more than the issued capital, whereas issued capital is equal to or less than the authorized capital. Then the next question, list down the steps to be taken by a public company for the issue of shares to the public. So you just have to name the step. Number 1, to issue prospectus; number 2, to receive applications; number 3, to make allotments; and number 4, to make calls. Then the next question, write a short note on minimum subscription. For this you can write it from here, that what is minimum subscription, why is it required, and from this you can write that what is the limit of minimum subscription, what is the days, etc. Then the last question, give any 3 examples of preliminary expenses. You can write any 3 examples. For example, stamp duty and registration fees, fees on these on the documents needed for registration of a company, expenses incurred on the preparation and printing of various documents needed for the registration of a company, duty payable on authorized capital, cost of preliminary books, etc. So I hope the topics discussed in this video is clear to you children. Go through the video once again, revise the terms, revise whatever we have done, because all these concepts will be helpful to you while solving the practical questions, and also complete all the questions in your copies children. Thank you. Take care.